with Folksy Tales, and on this channel I talk about stories, in particular folk tales, beliefs, and mythologies. If you are interested in Tolkien lore, go ahead and take a look at my channel, The Folksy Friend. Today I am talking about a Mayan myth, and this one involves a whole lot of names, so we're going to do the best we can. This is the story The Hero Twins, about a pair of twins who traveled down to Xiabalba to play against the gods of the Underworld themselves. So to start out with, I'm going to need to give you a little bit of a family tree. We'll do a visual for it because it's a little tricky. So to begin with, we have a couple. We have Xbalanque and Xbalanque. And these two had a set of twins that were their sons. And their names were hun-hunahpu and vucub-hunahpu. So we have mom, dad, twin sons. Hun-hunahpu married Xbalanque, and they had twin sons. These twins were named hun-hunahpu and hun-hunahpu. But sticking with the first set of twins to begin with, hun-hunahpu and vucub-hunahpu, they were very loud and boisterous when they were out playing ball on their court. And they were in fact so obnoxiously loud that they garnered the wrath of the lords of the underworld, the lords of Xiabalba. And these lords lured the twins down into the underworld to play a ball game with them. Once they were in Xiabalba, the twins were subjected to a series of trials, and they failed, causing them to be sacrificed and buried beneath the ball court in Xiabalba. But as a warning to anyone else who dared be annoying and anger the gods, hun-hunahpu's head was attached to a calabash tree and just left there as a symbol of the god's power. So hun-hunahpu's wife ended up a widow, and his two sons were fatherless. Now one day the moon goddess Xbalanque just happened to be near the calabash tree, and she mistakenly almost grabbed the head of hun-hunahpu. When she realized what it was, she stopped trying to grab it, and they started to have a little bit of a chat. While they were talking, some spit from the mouth of hun-hunahpu landed on Xbalanque's hand, and this caused her to become pregnant. Now, Xbalanque, fearing her father, who was a lord of the underworld, decided to stay in the world of the living with who would have been her mother-in-law if she had been married to hun-hunahpu, hun-hunahpu's mother, Xiabalba. And in time, she gave birth to a set of twins. And these are the twins from the title, The Hero Twins. These boys were named Hunahpu, same as hun-hunahpu, just without the hun. These twins were named Hunahpu and Xiabalba. Now, Xiabalba I saw pronounced several different ways. I'm going to stick with Xiabalba and just hope that I'm correct. Now, these twins were immediately disliked by their grandmother because they cried too much, and they were hated by their half-brothers for existing. Remember, hun-hunahpu had a wife and children, and then I don't think it's considered cheating. I don't know, but regardless, he did have another set of twins with another woman, and so his first set of sons despised his second set of sons. When the boys were still babies, their brothers threw them into brambles and set them on top of an anthill, hoping to kill them. But the boys survived. Later, the elder two twins forced their younger brothers to do all of the work and all of the hunting for the family. And one day, the twins got the better of their brothers. They tricked their elder brothers by saying that they had shot some birds up in the trees, but the birds had not fallen out once they died. So the elder two brothers climbed up to find the birds, and as they climbed, the trees began to grow taller and taller. They grew so tall that the brothers could no longer make their way down, and as they tried to climb, they turned into monkeys. Embarrassed by their new appearance, they ran away and did not return home. Now the twins, who are the only set of twins on the scene, and I will be referring to as the twins, talking about Hunahpu and Xbalanque, they were getting a little bit of a reputation for being pretty clever. And one day, the god of storms, Huracan, came to them and asked for help. He wanted them to take down the arrogant and vain macaw god because he had been preaching to his worshippers that his fine silver beak was in fact the moon, and his golden vest was the sun. But these were lies. First, the twins tried to sneak up on him while he was eating in a tree. They blew darts at him that struck him in the side of the head, but they didn't kill him. He was, however, injured in his jaw and teeth. So the twins turned to trickery. They went to two older gods, Great White Petri and Great White Coati, and they asked these gods to pretend to be healers and to go to the macaw god and offer him their services, which they agreed to do. Once the older gods went to the macaw god, he asked them to help fix his teeth and also to fix his eyes, though we're not sure what was wrong with his eyes. These older gods tricked him by pulling out his teeth and replacing them with corn kernels, and then prying off all of the gems that decorated the space around his eyes. Now that he had lost his brilliance and was plain and ugly, the macaw god died of embarrassment. Then Huracan went to the twins again and asked for their help in destroying the macaw god's sons, because they were just as vain and arrogant as their father. His sons were Sipakna, a demon crocodile monster, and Kabrakan, the earthquake god. Sipakna had killed the 400 boys, who were the gods of alcohol, and Kabrakan took a little too much joy in pulling down mountains with his terrible earthquakes. The twins started with Sipakna. They made a fake crab out of a rock and some petals, and they placed it on a little narrow overhang beneath a mountain. When Sipakna went to try to reach in and grab it, they pulled down the mountain on top of him, and he turned into a stone. Next, they went to Kabrakan and told him that they had heard of a mountain that never stopped growing, and of course he wanted to be the one to pull this mountain down. So they led him on a long journey until eventually he began to get hungry. The twins served Kabrakan a poisoned bird that they had specifically made to weaken him. And once he was weak, they buried him beneath a mountain, so he would be forced to forever hold it up instead of being able to tear it down. One day, back at home, the twins were playing ball just as loudly and boisterously as their father and their uncle had done. Once again, the lords of Xiabalba were angered by this, and they sent word for the boys to join them in a match in the Underworld. Now, the boys were a little more wary and a little more clever than their father and his twin brother, because they knew that the lords of Xiabalba were going to try to trick them. So, using their smarts, they managed to make it down to Xiabalba safely, and they did lose the first match, but they kind of let it happen. That night, they were sent to stay in the House of Razors, which was filled with wickedly sharp stones that moved around of their own free will. But before the brothers could get hurt, they convinced the stones to stop moving, and so they were not harmed. The next day, their match ended in a tie, and thus sparked several days of the boys having to endure a very difficult match against the gods by day and a terrible challenge by night. They survived the terrible freezing conditions of the cold house, the bloodthirsty beasts of the jaguar house, and the inferno of the fire house. It wasn't until they were sent to the bat house that they lost a challenge. While they were in that house, Hunahpu was decapitated, and Xbalanque, thinking quickly, used a gourd to make a replacement head for his brother. When they went to play their ball game, they used Hunahpu's head as the ball. They then had to wait until the lords of the underworld were distracted so Xbalanque could grab his brother's head, put it on his body, and then use the gourd as the ball. And this time, the twins won, and they won by quite a margin. It was a very embarrassing defeat for the lords of Xiabalba. Furious, the lords of Xiabalba plotted to murder the young men. But of course, when Hunahpu and Xbalanque saw this giant oven that had just been created in the underworld, they knew what was going on. And they willingly jumped into the fire that the lords were trying to trick them into. They were burned to nothing and their bones ground into powder. The powder was then tossed into one of the rivers of the underworld. Couple days went by, about 5 days, and this powder reformed into 2 catfish. And after a little while longer, the boys were able to retake human form, this time as younger than they were before. And because of this new appearance, no one recognized them, and they were able to just roam and wander around Xiabalba. In time, they started to perform tricks and little feats of magic, and they gained quite a reputation as impressive wizards. So much so that word of them reached the lords of Xiabalba, and the lords summoned the boys to perform for them. Once they were before the lords, the boys made a great trick and play of sacrificing Hunahpu, removing his head and his heart, just for Xbalanque to put him back together and bring him back to life. And this amazing trick was so impressive that 2 of the highest lords of Xiabalba ordered Xbalanque to do the same to them. They wanted to know how this trick was performed. But of course, as soon as these 2 lords were sacrificed, Hunahpu and Xbalanque revealed who they really were and refused to bring the lords back to life. The twins declared that there would no longer be any human sacrifices made to the lords of Xiabalba from that day onward. And with this proclamation, they were risen up into the heavens and took their rightful place as the sun and the moon. Though I found there are many who think that this last bit is a little bit of a tweak of how it should be, that the boys became both the sun, but Hunahpu was the sun when it was bright, and Xbalanque was the sun at night when it couldn't be seen, because in Mayan belief, typically the moon is feminine, not masculine, but either way, they were a part of the cosmos. And that is the story of the hero twins. The boys actually appear in a few different novels and TV shows, and their story is also used as inspiration for different tales. Interestingly, if you are, like me, a huge fan of the movie The Road to El Dorado, these 2 boys are the gods from the beginning of the movie, and they are the gods that Miguel and Tulio pretend to be later. So, fun fact, I never knew that. I hope you enjoyed this story. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if you want to hear more from Mayan mythology. The names are tricky for me, and I probably still, even though I practiced, got some wrong, but the stories are so interesting. It's a completely different set of myths that I've never gone into before, so I really had fun looking this one up. Thanks for spending some time with me here today, and I will see you next time.